appunto lavorato per diverse città inglesi, cominciando proprio da Bristol, e una cosa che mi piace molto del loro modo di chiamare i progetti è questo concetto della leggibilità applicata alle città. È un modo di progettare che renda più comprensibile alle persone, ma che non sia calato dal lato, che non sia uno studio attento della città, del modo in cui le persone ci si muovono, una cosa che quindi deriva come approccio più dalla progettazione urbana, quindi secondariamente dal singolo oggetto, che si collega agli studi fatti negli anni 60 da persone come Benini, ci sono immagini della città, il modo in cui viene percepita, il modo in cui potrebbe essere percepita e utilizzata dai suoi abitanti. Sono potenzialmente un territorio enorme da studiare, e quindi speriamo che i casi di studio che ci ho portato mai ci aiutino a entrare il primo passo in questo mondo, in questo modo di progettare, e a questo punto cedo la domanda a lui. Thank you, Mike, for accepting our invitation, and it's
Can everybody hear me? Okay. I do apologise for not speaking in Italian. When I say it's probably as good as it will get. Anyway, hello. Without further ado, I'm going to talk for maybe an hour, depending on how awake and lively you're looking. But please, if you want to at the end of the discussion ask me any questions, or if you're too shy to speak in a group, then come up and speak to me afterwards. Very happy to answer any questions, and obviously I'll be as open as I can be in trying to respond to you all. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to kind of the area of work that really is my passion in many ways. It's been my life for the last 10 years. I'm going to show you 4 projects, if I can remember the order, in Bristol, in the UK, from Sheffield, Newcastle to Southampton. I'd like to show you some other work and maybe come back in due course if we're going to do a workshop, because we're also working in places like Birmingham, London, Bath in the UK, and Moscow in the Arab Emirates, and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil at the moment as well. So our reach is going more global as this kind of awareness to this type of work increases. So without further ado, I'll rattle through. The first bit's a bit boring, so I confess, but it's got some text on it basically. After that, basically we're going to show you lots of images, so lots of pictures to see, so you can relax then. Broadly, we're quite unusual as a design company in that we don't design everything. We're highly collaborative in the way we work. And I think the way we see ourselves as being almost choreographers of the design process, in as much as we try and set the stage for design and build a process for design, and then collaborate to bring in other expertise and other people into our design fold or into our design family. Having said that, we combine a range of different skills from thinking and thought processes. Much of what I want to talk about in many ways is about the whole understanding of place in particular and what that means. And I suppose the view that we take on life is that really everything in life is almost a sign or a signifier of something, and it has a level of meaning to it. From literal signs to literal subliminal experiences in cities and places. So thought processes and our understanding of place is actually quite key to what we do. We're ideas people, we also do a lot of planning, very boring things, but the mechanics of bringing projects to life is actually quite complex and difficult. A lot of our work engages with a multitude of different partners, with different stakeholders, from government agencies, politicians, to individuals, to interest groups. And we have to find a way in building projects at City to take them on a journey. And what we found in working over the last 10 years is the more we open up our processes to people in the communities and other interest groups, the more they will take ownership of an idea that much earlier on in the way a project is developed and founded. And that's very, very important. As much open working as possible. So collaboration, you don't know everything, or not best at everything. It's good to work with people and working very openly. And in that way, it gives us a new energy, a new power, a new sense of purpose when we're approaching new jobs and working with new clients. And I think all that leads ultimately to a heightened sense of direction. We take out of one project, not what it looks like necessarily, where we try and take out of a project all our learning and all our collective experiences and put them into the next project, basically. Our studio in Bristol, one or two of you have been over, a couple of guys here in the front row have been over to Bristol. It's a bit, in all honesty, like a classroom. I like it because it's pretty long, but then not dissimilar to this. It's 2 floors, but broadly it's got lots of walls. And what we like to do is think on walls, basically. So I get annoyed if I don't see work in progress. And what I try and encourage the team to do in Bristol is all this to cross-relate and cross-crit, if you like, everybody else's work again in an open way, because actually an idea shared is a problem solved in many ways. We also work at scale. A lot of things we do for cities are actually quite big, so the idea of prototyping at real size and at real scale is very, very important to us as designers as well. The makeup of our team, I should say a little bit about this. There's now 10 of us, core team, and we have another 10 associates effectively that work with us. And they cover a range of different disciplines, from arts background to psychology, to information design, graphic design, urban design, and project management. There's a certain amount of product design, but not much. I wouldn't profess that we are product designers by any stretch of the imagination. But it's an interesting mix, and what I expect everybody to do within the team is, again, to work across projects. So people aren't given one project in the studio to do. We all have to muck in on particular projects and different projects in order to add collectively to the brain or the idea of that project in question. So, still philosophy, and I think I don't say too much about this, but broadly, we found quite early on that if you just tell people the way it is, they won't necessarily understand. But ultimately, if you try and engage and involve people, then perhaps their level of understanding will grow and the project benefits from that approach. I've got to admit, this is plagiarism. I borrowed this, but I liked it, so it doesn't matter. So I think it's fine to do that if you're honest about it. But anyway, involving people is key to successful design processes. And I find what's interesting in talking in different design schools in education is when students come to me and want to work with us, we almost have to unpick their learning processes. Because in many places, institutions in the UK, universities and colleges, they teach you to work in isolation, they teach you to work for yourself, not necessarily collectively. And it's a real problem because in the real world, certainly in our world, it's the real world, then join working with different people in real world situations where you're talking to people that at different levels in the community or in places that aren't designers, then you've got to find a way of engaging and bringing different ideas to the process, other than just your professional and subjective opinion. It's very, very important. So, to my mind, to unravel the learning process, to start again, so it can be quite refreshing. I'll take some questions on that if you want to down the line. We'll be here all night if I'm singing along to the bit. Sorry. Basically, our projects then, I'm an urban designer by background and planner, and I was talking earlier, the company's city ideas probably made up of all my interests. So, for instance, graphic design, typography, cartography, public space design, all things that are interested in why I believe I've set up the company really to sort of influence and shape cities. We are, I think, quite unusual in the UK, and that we're probably literally the only company that is using the idea of placemaking with wayfinding and the experience that people themselves have of cities. So it's almost, in some sense, an anti-architectural approach, and it puts people at the centre of the design process. And actually, what we're trying to do is trying to understand what people need in order to feed back to them a city that they can engage with and understand. And in some ways that has to be planned, but in other ways it can be audacious and different and divergent. It doesn't need to be a single narrative or a single story. But having an eye to telling the story in the first place is something that I think we're quite unique at the moment, certainly in our country. I want to come on to talk about three things really: image, identity, and legibility. I think I heard you mention earlier on in the lecture, I'm a great admirer of image because for those that don't know anything about him, he's probably one of the first urbanists to borrow from other people's intellectual pots of light, if you see what I mean, in terms of he looked at the role of meaning in place, he looked at the role of people in place, and he went beyond architecture and the physical city to consider all its meta parts, all its different aspects. And I don't know if there's really been anybody like him since that time in many ways. But he really focused for the first time on this whole issue of legibility, i.e. how does a person, a user in a place, really feel about his or her surroundings? And how can you design cities in a way that does engage them and does almost have a conversation with the individual? And it's a very different way of looking at building places when you think of cities telling stories and people engaging in that kind of place narrative. So, to my mind, the whole issue of image and legibility has become very important economically to cities. Strong cities and competitive cities clearly are those ones that are actually thinking of the customer, the end user, and not just thinking in terms of flagship brand architecture, but the everyday experience of travelling from A to B, or finding a hotel, or browsing the city on the website. We've recently done a project in Birmingham, for instance, where we found through research that people are spending now almost as much time virtually exploring the city and planning their experience as they do in real life. And that's changing, that level of engagement through the internet, through print publications about cities is obviously something that's becoming more and more important. And those cities that are planning and investing in the design of every aspect, or every part of their voice, are ultimately going to be more successful economically over a longer period. So this level of work is actually very important to businesses and to government cities themselves. And to my mind, it's the marriage of identity, image and legibility that does ultimately give the city its personality, its expression. And identity and image, if you get those two right, then you'll see many cities that have a marketing image, but the reality is very different when you actually go there. Those that marry both the image and the physical identity generally do so because it's a consistent message coming through, and it's also very authentic. They're not telling lies or trying to be something there that they're not. So thinking about how those work together is very important. Similarly, the outer image of the city, we were just talking about Bilbao and the Bilbao effect and Guggenheim. But the reality is, when you're there, it's a fantastic city just to walk about and engage, use its transport systems, stroll in its streets and parks and spaces. It has a grand marriage, its image and legibility very well. And similarly, when you get to the real world of the city's place itself, then people will come again, people will talk about it. Not just if the grand architecture is good, but also if the everyday and the mundane experience is also interesting and easy to use. But also perhaps working, perhaps that idea of being lost somewhere. But being lost in an engaging way. Being asked to almost retrace the path and find a way back to the rest of the city. It's all key facets of what makes places very special. Moving on. So, cities do need to combine image that is matched in the reality of place and the quality of user experience. And I think that's only now becoming on many cities' radar. And a legible city has the capacity to connect and read people very efficiently, but also to provide very emotional and rich and engaging experiences in their design. So, hence that strong place narrative is very, very important. And ultimately, I think legible cities are generally more accessible, more welcoming. And you empower the user to stay longer, to spend more money, to come back again, and create powerful stories that you can tell your family and friends about your place. So I'm going to whiz on through this slide, but broadly in reading place, and I think coming back to Ben Lynch, you look very much at how you read the architectural structure of the city, streets and spaces. And you develop a language based on looking at what it called nodes, which are things like major junctions and points of interchanges, which transport systems. He also looked at things like landmarks and other features. And I think what's interesting is now we're seeing that the role of information is driven through web, through mobile, through sign systems, is becoming as important as the physical city itself in many ways to some people. And how we design that is quite clear. And the rest of the presentation is really going to go on to focus about that. So a city's information structure is vitally important. And by that, I mean effectively the overlay designers can give to a city in terms of how you connect points of arrival to destinations, to information spaces, to information about these transport systems. A key marker, a key measure of how successful cities are being planned and designed. I think it's quite crucial as well that if you design cities moving into information systems effectively, you're almost relaying a mental map for people to engage in very regularly and creating more accessible cities. So, yes, looking at things like land use, streets and spaces, moving on to the city is very, very important. But crucially, is that overarching information overlay that's, I think, the key differentiator between cities that are more successful than some others. And I think this came out of an exercise we've been about the whole notion of looking at various layers of structure, and actually some cities in the past have tried to design one of them in isolation from looking at the complete picture. It's actually important to look at everything from the way people are moving through streets and spaces, transport systems, but also its wayfinding and information overlay. And lastly, activities and animation events from markets to street theatre, and planning those collectively, choreographing that experience in life is obviously the way we think the city should be considered in their design. So, this mental map. Mental maps are very important in terms of providing the right level and quality of information. I think what we're also finding crucially is that people don't fit into a regimented box. Not every user is certainly alike or different. And I think the solution to providing information, designing information in cities in the past, has been to provide a single sign system or a single type of information. Whereas with new technology and the opportunities that we have available with different design tools, there is the opportunity to tailor information. So for a business user has a very different set of requirements to a leisure tourist. A business tourist may want a very well managed experience over here, for instance, where they're time poor, cash rich, they might have an hour, but they want set itineraries, they want to build their own experience through using different web tools. They want a really fast track experience of how to get from A to B. Very different from somebody that is a weekend visitor or a tourist, or even dare say a resident of their own city in many regards, that's relying more on streets and spaces for navigation as well as information. But crucially, those people are quite happy being lost, still discovering, but you need to provide and plan a whole different level of tools and design initiatives to enable those different exchanges to go on in parallel. And what we're finding, for instance, again, in terms of Birmingham, as an example, Birmingham in the UK now has a £22 billion economy around the managed experience of people in their city. Convention goers, conference goers, other types of business tourists. Yet they have 80% unoccupied bed spaces in all their hotels for the weekend. What they need is a strategy there, for instance, to convert the managed tourist experience to one of discovery and exploration. But people at the moment, in their image of in the UK, it's not one that's interest, engaging, immersive experience where you can almost go off the rails or go off the radar and just enjoy yourself. So what we're trying to do there is ultimately develop a package of measures and streetscape design, new initiatives that will encourage people to come back and revisit that city through a different personality almost, not business tourists, but somebody there just for a weekend to explore and enjoy the city itself. So one size doesn't fit all. You know, we have to be very sensitive to different user needs and requirements on the design. Lastly, on this kind of area, and then more pictures. We're moving from a world of what is previously been based on static content, that's information that's given to you in print through science systems, to one that's about providing information through dynamic and mobile media. And we're finding that much more of our work now is actually in the web and digital domain. And the ability to create multiple narratives and multiple stories tailored through mobile and dynamic media is presenting us with infinite problems, but also infinite possibilities. And I think the next 5 to 10 years, in terms of both understanding higher levels of interaction design and consequently using the needs of those technologies, something that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be providing better levels of managed content, but also interface design that rather than default to Google Earth, actually default to a city interface, for instance. In an area for exploration. So we're going to see many kind of traditional strands of design opening into this digital media in the next few years. So I'm going to kick off now with a few case studies. First one being Bristol. These are really all of them. I think Bristol was the first project, French project that we got involved in, and in large part it has been very successful, though there are certain issues, its transport system in particular, that haven't still been resolved. But broadly, we started to think about the city as a whole journey experience, i.e. getting from A to B, not just designing a section of the transport system, and thinking about it as being an open plan system that you create pieces of information talk one to another across the whole journey stage. Traditionally, in the UK in particular, people have thought about being on the bus, or just being in the car, or dare I say, just being a pedestrian. They've never ever stitched that experience or planned that experience collectively. I think that's really important to people role of design as something that can create a powerful idea to link those things together. But it takes a shifting government, a shifting culture to do it. But the idea of whole journey is very important. Also, the idea of multi-channel, that no longer is it good enough to provide one information type and pretend that it will work for everybody. It has to work across being using the right message, conveying the right message through the different communication channels, be it web, print, and on your journey in a city. So it's almost about designing the message in a way that you should just enough information at that particular point, and also in the right communication channel, but doing not much more, just enough at each and every step of the journey. And lastly, it has to work across different codes. You know, it's only in the last 5 to 10 years that the whole area of planning for the pedestrian has really come to the fore in the UK. Before that, it was designing for the car, the bus, not even the cyclists, but the cyclists certainly more than pedestrians. Yet I think there's now an idea that in order to make this place pedestrians, people walking, should be at the heart of how we design cities. And remaking cities around pedestrians is also a long-term vision, but it's something that thinking about the user information, the web engagement public space, becomes a new tool for transport planners, for urbanists to start to think about designing for people and pedestrians in a new way. So half the things we do is developing design tools for more walkability, for more walkable cities. Because in my mind, if you create a city that is more walkable, easier to get around, then it also ultimately has high levels of active frontages, better quality spaces. You start to redesign every facet of the city by virtue of the change of pace. So it's quite key to us, pedestrian walkability. So all of this really, in my mind, is starting about design as glue. Only really doing what you need to do. And I'm going to show you now some of the various visions. First up, in Bristol. Bristol is a project that's unusual, and I was talking earlier on, many projects are quite difficult to do because there's too much government involved and the clients are multifaceted engineers, transport planners, tourism people, cultural people, all bringing different ideas. When I first started working at Bristol, I had one client, a guy called Rawlinson. We had a real vision for the city, which was let's invest in lots of different projects, but let's try and pull them together and bring them together. And out of that kind of shared vision, we had the opportunity to evolve a design framework for the first one, I think, in 20 odd years for the city centre. Start to think about a whole movement in wayfinding system that did go across the various nodes. Think about new tools for visitor management, and lastly, how do we thread new attractions and new destinations in the city together through better quality public space, through better quality pavements and a built environment. And it sounds quite simple, but that idea was unheralded, it was unheard of at the time in the UK. And certainly stitching it together over the last 10 years has been a major part of my life and other people. One of the first things that we got involved in was an idea of a master plan for the city that, unusually, I think, is flew in the face of many urban cities in the UK. We actually identified a series of quarters or neighbourhoods as being the kind of anchoring mechanism for regeneration in the city. And we suggested, and were pains to suggest, that much of the design of the city should actually reflect the characteristics of particular parts of the city, rather than trying to create a single look and feel or a branded environment that was imposed on every part of the city centre. However, we did say that also the city did need some overlay in blue. It did need an information system which pulled all the parts together. And we quickly drew a kind of an intermediate diagram of the city about connecting the major regeneration areas. And at this point in time, going back 10 or 15 years, was in the pipeline. I think it was at that time about £3 billion, 4 billion euros of investment going into that city centre. And we're very worried that if we didn't stitch the parts together, then the sum wouldn't add up the potential of the whole facility. So what we ended up doing and looking at was a regeneration strategy based on connecting and stitching the streets and the spaces together. And again, I think it's the first time developing a blueprint for reconnecting the water environment back into the city centre. I know a few of you have been to Bristol now, but at this time, we could only gain access when the project first started, maybe about 20% of its water frontage. Over that time, it's now about 80%, and it's finally because the blueprint was put in place. And sort of orangey blobs represented other major projects that were ongoing at that time. And on the right, the diagram there represented this idea of primary root structure in the city, pulling together all the various different areas. And that became the focus for investment in new streets and spaces, but also in terms of new wayfinding products. I was lucky enough to begin the kind of creative direction of the project, and I had the opportunity to really handpick a whole range of different people that I wanted to work with. One of the companies that we worked with was Meta Design. I was a great admirer of, at the time, of Eric Stephen and what they tried to do in Germany in terms of a company that operated in the sphere of private design and corporate design, but had also started to work in the public sphere, particularly in terms of information graphics at BVG in Berlin. And I brought together a team consisting of Meta Design, Fitch, PSD from London, product designers, and also an urbanist company called Urban Initiatives in London as well, which I worked with, and broadly cherry-picked people out of those teams to work with me over a period of 3 or 4 years to evolve the design language. Part of this was working with people like Eric on typographic design and evolving a typography for the city. And again, since sort of Harry Beck basically designed many of the Transport for London, London Underground map, but also Frank Pick, his colleague, worked on things like typography involved New Johnson as a typeface for Transport for London many years ago. But since that time, typography as a facet of city design has almost disappeared for something like 60 years in UK cities. And we saw typography as being as important as many architectural elements in the city as a way of anchoring information or giving it a personality to the place as and when it was appropriate to do so. So it's used very selectively on information products, not used as a headline branding, but just enough to get people from A to B. We also looked at pictogram design and other things, and again, this hasn't been done for a city. We engaged a very talented guy called Russell Bell, who worked with us in our team to evolve 3D language for the city in terms of 3D illustrated buildings, which are now automated to evolve in 3D so we can automate them and position them into different products. Crucially, we also looked at, again for the first time, I think, a range of mapping types and scales from Europe right way through to detailed mapping of city spaces and places. And again, this is quite unusual, I think, even now, because we're more and more reliant on Google Earth and other things. But what we suggested to the city is that if they evolve the system, then they can take ownership in terms of its design language, but also crucially contextualising or creating a narrative story that runs over the top of all these bases. So they control the content. For instance, I don't know if anybody's used Google Earth, and we use it a myriad of times in different projects, but the content and information in it is going to be crap because somebody in Austin, Texas, is sat there typing information from somebody that sends them that information. It's not audited, managed, or controlled properly. So ultimately, it's to yes, a wonderful design and technological solution, but practice is designed in many ways. It doesn't function and perform when you need it, which is when you're in the street. Now, maybe that's been unkind, but the other thing for me, it actually didn't go 3 or 4 levels down, which is actually into micro-environments, spaces, to tell you where you can cross the road, or where there were steps, or where there's all the detail and richness that certainly people with mobility impairments need that kind of information. So one of my personal ambitions over time is to actually Google in terms of quality, and perhaps create the equivalent of a Google mapping system for a city in the UK. And we're aiming to do this again over the next few years to challenge, because I think through control and quality management on information and control and quality design, we could create an ideal or paradigm in terms of improved cartography for places. Maybe that's being ambitious, but again, you can hold me to that one and I will come back. I think what was quite limited about Bristol, people said we maths designed to do maths, which they might be right. But what we found out from doing the whole thing around user testing and various other things is actually reverse that mapping in light environments reduces reflectivity, reduces glare. Reversing out type, for instance, was also on testing found to be lifetime, and people found to be as intuitive, if not more intuitive, than general positive type mapping that we do see in many places. The other key facet here, and I think again now this has been copied, but certainly in the UK, it was the first time ever that heads-up mapping was used. And by that I mean, on the standard map base, we've cut individual maps and then rotate the information and put that into the public realm. So the user will be looking at the information as you see it within the system. So it will mirror your view, and it becomes very intuitive to use. And particularly if you're carrying things like a paper-based map around with you, you just walk up to the map, work out its relative shape, turn the map, and it's a compass for you. So it's a very efficient way of working. And again, it's been copied, but it was quite interesting working with Meta on this, because Meta designed that many designers actually think that they know best. And in my experience, many designers do not actually, when it actually comes to testing ideas of real people actually getting out there. So I insisted, and we went out and did field tests, we did user testing examples, diagnostic tests on usability of icons, pictograms, colour contrast, but crucial on things like heads-up reading. And we actually found that 90% of the respondents preferred heads-up mapping over standard north format information. And that's been recorded, and it's been easier now to sell that to the next client that they should actually try and design from a user point of view, rather than designers or architects who are very spatially aware most of the time, but unlike perhaps yourselves, many people aren't. We also set in training really early on the idea of how you capture in guidance almost the system you're designing. Because if you're creating complex kit of parts that has to live across a city environment, then it needs a management system that's bigger and better than any one single company. So what we try to do is put in place a system of guidance, a system of standards that can be used and owned by the city itself. So long after the designers were gone, there was something that's still in place that could be managed and updated and can be worked with. And I think, from my point of view, the fact that this project is still ongoing over 10 years in now is testament to the fact that, one, the ideas are good, the products actually work, I think, more or less. Yes, you can always improve them, perhaps. But crucially, it didn't have a legacy system, an idea of a legacy in terms of, we didn't just think about day one of design, we actually thought about the long-lasting implications of what we were trying to do. And we went through a process of training up a whole design team in the City Council to actually work and operate the system. And indeed now they work on it every day, and they have a particular level of expertise that many design companies don't have in the UK because of that sort of application of principles and ideas into the long-lasting legacy of the project. There are very detailed guidance systems in it. Again, at some point, if anybody's interested, I'm happy to show you more on that kind of information. We also, the project, broke from tradition in many UK cities where people design catalogues and design out of, I've just mentioned manuals, but this is about design guidance for the city, but standard guidance that you pick up from any number of 100, 200 manufacturers. What we try to do is to say, well, look, every facet of design should have, try and encapsulate something of the DNA of the city, something of the spirit and personality of the city itself. So to our mind, it was really important that we said, no, let's rip up the catalogues, let's not even go there, let's design something from scratch that will enable us to provide a living information system that would work, but crucially would work as a kit of parts and a system of things just for this city. And fortunately, our client, the city government, backed us to build in this sort of approach. So I should explain how we backed us significantly in terms of funding to move this forward. So we could evolve a series of information products for the city, easily monoliths and finger-post-based elements with a heads-up mapping. Tables, lighting, hardware and materials. They still look very, very new, and they're now worth more in cost of product to recycle. So when they were built, we calculated that over a period of time, that if the council did decide to take them out in 10, 15 years, they'd be worth more in scrap value than the first build cost. So I'd like to think in itself that's quite an inherently stable, sustainable way of working. However, they like them so much, they want to integrate them and renew them as opposed to redesign. The products also featured in the featured a range of new streets and spaces. And crucially, we also had an exercise to remove hundreds of pieces of street furniture and other pieces of clutter in the city that really were redundant and no longer required. And that gives you an idea of the quality of the mapping itself. Again, hardware and vitreous enamel, so they're graffiti wipes clean, they self-clean through our wonderful climate in the UK, perennial lane. We also designed to work with it, a series of print maps, and again, millions of these have been produced. And unlike many cities which seek sponsorship for all these sorts of products, they're all free of advertising, which is, I think, very good. And again, it's part of the personality of the city that it does give away this information to open up people's access to the services. We followed it through into providing a whole range of information tags to different businesses in the city for when they're relocating, which includes information about how to get about the language extended beyond the public sector and government into people like Orange, the mobile phone company. It's followed through to interpretation. Yes, advertising has come in separate products. And again, we had Jason Co and people like Clear Channel wanting to give the city its version of products, and we said no, please design it for us and go away with it because we sold a legal idea to you. We did further work in terms of profiling transport in the city. Again, this was done about 7 or 8 years ago, this visual, and this carbon project has never come to life. Only now is we've been reapproached as a new government administration to say, look, can we try and make the transport system work better through the idea of federal systems project. At the time as well, that's not how it would have probably, but at the time we, this is probably where it all went wrong actually, thinking about it. But we engaged not just work with people like Meta Design and other people who are kind of very pure information designers. We also work with people like that, fashion architecture and taste. One or two we may know, but deliberately this idea of if you put together a team of expertise and individuals, how can you bring in somebody that's going to give you a kick up the backside and make you think about something differently, just change your perspective. So what was great about working with Fact is they were anti-system, but also quite anti-architecture, even though they are architects. They offered a very interesting perspective on telling different stories about the city and the fact that actually you can be more playful and inject different personality into the design of everyday objects, design of everyday things. And again, I think this would have been great if it moved forward as an idea, but it didn't. Other little ideas they had was about, again, they're quite ironic designers in many ways, but the idea of externalising or creating a sort of living room within the city, for instance. So the radiator, the lampshade, the stool, as a means of introducing other types. No, it's not. These are ideas. They were at that time, they were a step too far for the council to take. I think now just coming back though, those ideas of actually creating another story in the city, almost a place-related story rather than the city as read as a system, were also very key to the project. And indeed, we worked on a master plan for spaces in the city, and it involved not just grand remakings of squares in particular places, but over 100 micro projects of changing the size of pavements, traffic signal timings, to aid pedestrian movements. And arguably, I think these are as successful as any kind of wayfinding project that we've done. And again, working through FAT and various other artists, we introduced a range of different projects into different spaces. This being a commentary on wildlife in the city. In fact, it's a major Georgian square, massive square, one of the biggest squares in Europe. But that square was, like over-designed, it was designed to death almost in the past, but in as much as it no longer was habitable to wildlife. Beautiful architecturally, manicured in a landscape kind of way, but didn't explore in any way any kind of life other than human life. And this was idea to create a series of bird boxes. Many actually, in some sense, semi-disturbing images of bird boxes. But the idea being is that they recolonise that space, and if they didn't, it was almost a commentary on the lack of life in that space itself. That's another major space project that we got involved in. We also got involved in text-based projects, poetry-based projects, involving writers, poets working in the city as well. on different projects in the centre. There's been a project called Walkie Talkie that literally was using the language of the science system, but taking it through different environments across buses, ferries, buildings, public spaces in the central area of the city. Again, it's partly arts commentary. We also engaged as well approximately 100 artists over a 6-month period to work on re-inhabiting redundant buildings and spaces in the city centre. Again, to get people to go into environments that they didn't know about or weren't familiar about. So it's almost a temporary re-inhabitation of space. So again, you know, the role of arts has been quite important in providing this counter commentary to the official government view of the city. These again are some examples from different environments. There are a range of publications on this that I can send to anybody that is interested if you want to follow it up in the project. I mentioned a bit about Sheffield. Just trying to manage the time. I'm only at the time to do at least another project. Sheffield is, everybody that doesn't know, a city that's really suffered from lack of growth, lack of employment opportunities. Indeed, it was known as the Socialist Republic of Yorkshire for many period of time. It was based on the idea of industrial manufacturing, steel, heavy industry, but all that left with Margaret Thatcher many years ago now, and the city's almost had to reinvent itself over a period of time. And it's probably become one of the most economic success stories within the UK. It's done this through design. And I'd like to think we played a part in helping reshape this city. What I want to talk about initially is that the city had problems in terms of new investment in fragmented city centre, people getting lost, not finding their way around, but not really being able to understand how to move from A to B to a great central area. And we were asked to look at, actually, in the first place, what is the city centre? How do you define it? How do you divide it up and chunk it up so you can communicate it successfully to people? And we looked at the whole movement system from its transport systems, its tram systems, and started to define like a rework network of movement patterns within the city. And the idea was ultimately to subdivide the city into various different areas to actually provide information and get people into particular locations by car and then encourage them to walk and use public transport thereafter. We also came up with a strategy to restitch the central area, the central corridor of new spaces together. So on the right, the brown image shows the pedestrian route connections and the major new spaces that were being planned at that particular time. So we suggested using that kind of basic footprint and moving network, but they needed to overlay it with a new information system. And that cruciform shape became the basis for developing the information system. And again, we did a lot of interviews, analysis. We set up an editorial board in the city to generate content for the system. And give that some structure and hierarchy so the right information is delivered at the right time in the journey. We engaged with a company called Attila Works in London during the Tankard to develop a typography for the city. And a company called Pearson Lloyd, who are quite well known here now as product designers, to work on street furniture design builds. And we explored a lot about the graphic language and process of hallmarking, steelmaking, metalwork within the city, and some of those ideas of authenticity, marking, and that type of language became key anchoring device visually for the development of the city system. We did a lot of user testing, questionnaires, field work. We followed people, trailed them, videoed them, interviewed them, in order to better understand how they were using the city and what that movement dynamic was. We developed a mapping structure to the city, and unlike Bristol, what we suggested to Sheffield is to evolve a royalty-free system, which means it is without copyright, so they can own it themselves. In the UK, we had something called Ordnance Survey, which came out of military establishment, and effectively they generate all cartography for government in the UK. It's very inflexible. You can't use it on the web, you can't use it on print without paying huge royalties. So we suggested that they take investments to generate all this information themselves, so they could provide it to universities, to hospitals, to any major partner that they wanted to, in order to the project to take root over a period of time. We generated vast levels of cartography at great levels of detail. Very different visually from Bristol, but deliberately to reflect more of that city's personality, with the shapes of pictograms reflecting the hallmarks that you see in steel and silver, I would say, and other fine handiwork. But crucially, white space represents their pedestrian movement, building entrances, identifying features. Very simple, very intuitive to use. We worked with, as I said, Pearson Lloyd to roll a simple product language, which is a typology, if you like, very simple products. Broadly, the information products themselves grow from the size and scale commensurate with the information that you need to provide. So, very simply, somebody arriving at the station is going to find more information, and all that defines the product form and shape and size of those. And what I liked about Pearson Lloyd in a way is that, again, they were sort of anti-product design as much, that no one was creating something quite beautiful and pared back, but something that wasn't the hero, something that wasn't doing the show to it. They just wanted this to be very simple background noise and background detail to the city. There we need it, but doing no more than its simple functional job. So hence the very pared back monolithic form and shape There's very simple kind of architecture to them as well, that enables you to grow them into shelters and into other structures. And we did a lot of information analysis based on the needs and requirements to work for a range of product types across all the various journey stages and different types of transport, from arrival at car parks to rail stations to the metro system, as the tram system in the city, as well as just pedestrian wayfinding system itself. So, unlike Bristol, for the first time in the UK, this was a movement information system that did stitch the various modes together. I think that still is a first, arguably, certainly in our country, where we've managed to do this. We did a lot of detailed design work with the transport operators, that's the people that run the tram systems, the bus systems. Again, you can only have design visions only as good as the process behind it, and as much as we had to convince the operators of the individual bus services to come on board and almost regulate the visual language of bus systems and tram systems in the city, because each one looked different. So it's really important to have the right conversations with people that are running different aspects of the transport system. We generated and created templates to generate hundreds of pieces of artwork over a rapid design process. These are examples of the bus rack system that Bob. Quite an intuitive system, route maps, simple timetabling, and on the journey maps. So no matter where you are in the system now, as a pedestrian, you're always greeted with information when you alight to get off the bus or get off the tram in the system. That wasn't the case before. You were on the tram or on the bus, but never, it never was the system plan to help you with your next step. So I like to think it's a very seamless system compared to what it was. There's a lot of development work with product designers, manufacturers. We had to create a system that could be updated 4 times a year across the whole system. And to do that, we had to liaise not just with transport operators, but various government agencies to build them a design platform, design tools that they can use and operate and manage themselves. And we had in our design warehouse template things and create very simple templates on there, design templates in Excel or anything. So the Transport Authority just automated 7,000 timetables and replaced them overnight if they needed to do it. So it's been very, very aware, we have to be very aware of the real world economics and real world need for managing information projects. And obviously sometimes that tests your design integrity and obviously challenges the look and feel of everything you want to do. These are the information points in Sheffield, and the accompanying new streets and the spaces that were designed in parallel. Interestingly, they're looking back to the last one. You see, up in the main name and in Scuola, you see photography to use in these information points. And the idea here was to provide literally heads-up photography, so you can interpret the view in front of you in terms of historical information, but also these give directions about which street to go on to get to your next destination. So, here you've got an example, for instance, where you can describe historically that place, but also follow Norfolk Street, Edging Galleries, for instance, Finstone Street for the City Hall. Again, it's a different device, but again, it came out of working collaboratively with different people and working with the public to test ideas. We also work with Bristol again on product design for shelters for the train system and the bus system in the city, and these now being big players. And similarly for, as I said, for buses as well. And we'll back there. I have mentioned operations. This is probably the most crucial piece of design we did, which is actually to draw the way information had been developed and managed and sustained. When we got involved with our partners, who are the public transport executive in the project, they only did everything on the left-hand side of the diagram. So they manage data and they manage it in geographic information form, like a GIS. But they didn't design it. They create vast amounts of data, they plug out, they push out in terms of very simple timetables. But they had no way of creating a design, or had no design language nor specifications to aid the development of network maps or onward journey maps, the whole raft of information design elements that we felt were important. What's been good about this as a project is that we got the opportunity to specify what their design team would do, to actually help in their engagement, to help with their training, and were on call support whenever we needed by virtual telephone, as and when we required. And this project went on for them to win the Transport Authority of the Year, because there's been such a radical change to the way the transport system is delivered and the way it's managed. And they're very happy customers, basically, in that regard. But the point I'm really making is that unless you understand the end process and why you're designing it, who you're designing for, who is the real client on this, then no matter the brilliant thing up front will actually make something last forever, or last for as long as it's a purpose. And I think for us, it's that Vitruvian process of thermotest and utility test, that functional aspect of design. It's so important to get absolutely right, because you can then layer beauty and nuance and graft in nuance into and embellish the design thereafter. It has to function from a user perspective. And I think that's the test in public design. People don't buy stuff because they buy stuff because, or they use it because for many people in the public realm there is no other choice. We have to get it right, we have to get it to the So I kind of like to think really that in our own way we're trying to change design from being, certainly in our country, where public design was about work. Design thing to be involved in. So actually through collaborative working and almost mapping the changing culture from a world of individual car drivers to what there has to be a collective change in the way we use the planet, then people that are passionate about public design, there's a big future there. And I think what we're trying to do is in our own way shift the game on as and when we can on different projects, because it's really vital when we start to improve the quality of life for our cities, to make them as habitable, as distinctive and as personal and engaging as we possibly can do. It's vital to all our futures. I should talk about more projects, right? I'm just conscious of time. And yeah, sure. Anybody that wants to use the room now, I won't be offended if you do. Want to be another project or? Okay? Sure? Okay. Newcastle, crap football team, but it's a wonderful city. Anybody else ever been to Newcastle? This, I should have a map, but this is in the northeast of England. And, again, it's been a city that's really been hard hit by economic decline. But in its own way, not dissimilar to Bilbao, it has regenerated itself in part through the belief and regeneration through culture and supporting the development of new institutions, be it from cinema to running theatre, to opera, to a whole range of different cultural initiatives. And they've actually built some incredible architecture to which I don't have photos, but the likes of Norman Foster, there's a whole bunch of people that have been working there to build one or two really fantastic venues and institutions. What the city also has is its incredible topography, the city flowing into the river. And on that river, they've built some of the most stunning bridges, I think, in the world. Bristol, Vincent's Eye Bridge, Maxim Lane's Bridge. But also, they all have a certain engineering quality. So it's an incredible city to go to, because it's a bit like Metropolis, where you've got high bridges and different views and vistas coming into play when you go through different parts of the city. And the other thing about this place, the people are incredible. You want to go for a party in a city, have some fun, and it's a great place to go to. You might have a hangover, you might have a bit groggy in the morning, but the city has a personality. We got involved in a project here called Wall Ride, and this was partly to do with the whole city culture thing that was going on. And what was interesting about this project was the opportunity again to stitch together the city together, but also to get involved in a new electric transit system for the city, which we were keen to do. I haven't talked about working processes for saying new cities, but one of the things that we did very early on in the project was the scoping study to define what the brief was. We were given almost a blank piece of paper, come and help us out. And we got together with the client and held a series of workshops to define what the brief would be for the project. It's a very lucky position to be in many ways. What we suggested to them is that they need to develop this idea of transport systems that provide information to people. And the business encourages them to be a bus user or a pedestrian, but we give them the opportunity at any stage in their journey to be either or both as necessary. Which again is a subtle change on the way information is planned and designed in UK cities. And many of these ideas that I'm going to talk about came out of a series of open studio sessions that we had in Newcastle. And we've done this in Birmingham, Bath, London, a variety of different places. So we literally physically, with our studio to that city, and engaged with designers and other people to come in and work with us. And here are kind of best designers for a period of time working with hands of others. It's a company called Carpet Levine, does that ring a bell to anybody, or it's a design company? Again, I've got a lot of time for Carpet Levine, particularly Mel Melissa, who's sat in the middle there. She's one of the best information designers I've ever been But it was great to bring again a team together to work in this city and actually bring that team together because Ian, who heads up college being born in Newcastle, had a passion for the place and felt that he personally wanted to put some of that energy, some of his energy back into design for the city. He's now based in London. We came up with some early ideas around the idea of the wide wall, so it's a very simple kind of play on language that we're looking for. Almost trying to get the idea that you can create a service for the city that you can hop on and hop off at any point in the city centre itself. But it would enable you to go and see visit friends, find services. That would open up that kind of basic skeletal structure or framework of transport would open up those type of opportunities to engage in the city. We've all kind of started with a very simple graphic language, and I should say this is going back 4 or 5 years working on this project. In fact, anybody that knows Newcastle United, the football club knows the inspiration behind Juventus, knows not Scuola, the inspiration behind black and white of Juve. They Newcastle again in black and white stripes. And the idea here is that people are very black and white, they're very to the point, direct, and tell you how life is into your face. And we also felt that architecture, the city was made up of a series of effectively grids or facets that are engineered, very solid. But when they're strung out over 100 metres or so, they create absolutely beautiful shapes and forms. And almost the edge and the hardness of that facet or shape disappears. But we like the idea of creating something that could be 2 points that could ultimately flow and grow into a whole myriad of different expressions, visually, as part of that language from mapping to typography. Sadly, not all of that's been achieved, but again, we're tendering from another piece of work here, and we'll hear whether we're going to get the whole next generation of design for the city. Hopefully this week, when I get back to the UK, we'll find out. But what we aimed to do early on was to develop this simple faceted language that could work across bus shelters, information systems, to paving language for the city. They'd also be used to shape literally the graphic language, the proportions and shape of pictograms, for instance, and other elements. And again, we have this logic and mathematical language almost behind the design. As a modular bit of parts that would grow and weave and grow out of different parts of the city to eventually present information or to act as features within the built environment. Here you see how part of that language could be structured through to mapping, defining the shape of the grid and the form of line movements through the city, for instance. Very simple. Again, a 2x1 grid for pictograms and other features. And the difficulty here is that we couldn't start from scratch. We had to mould together about 4 or 5 different information systems into a new language, but without entirely starting from a blank sheet of paper. So it's actually quite difficult. I mean, such as the project for Southampton, which again I can show you some of at this time. We had the opportunity to work with a complete blank piece of paper, which is wonderful. So most jobs that we work with, we have to blend and mesh and weave together a myriad of different existing information systems. Part of the language gained in terms of this facet and grid also work through into the language of 3D buildings, iconography, that again is in evidence in the designs as you see go through. We also wanted to use very simple language for the way the new electric bus service can be used. So being playful, this different cities working at different levels, moving down, looking up. We wanted the idea that we could create a service that you can see at great distance throughout the city. It's actually quite weird. Somebody pointed out to me that they went on Google Earth and they could see all these bright yellow neon dots all over the city centre. Nothing else to stand for it. You've got all these bright yellow neon dots or buses did, which quite interesting in its own right. But that was the desired effect. I mean, what we wanted to do here was create something that cuts through all the noise in the city, and just create something really sharp and in focus that we could identify with quite quickly. What we've got the opportunity to do is work on the bus both outside and inside fabric design. Now, the design, I'll be honest with you, is pretty shit. It's not the best piece of design, this bus. But again, we deal with what you can work with at times. Again, no blank piece of paper here, unfortunately. But you know, it's real world. But we did get the opportunity to work with fabric manufacturers and others. And it's worked within very tight tolerances and timescales to do something that will last 20 years, for instance. So again, we picked up on the idea of the facet and the grid within that. We worked on the route network diagrams, the interior of the bus environment. Again, not the idea of shape or form to deal with. You know, we didn't have the opportunity to influence every part and shape of this design. The idea being here, though, is that you always, at any point, give people the idea of how far it is to ride, but also, crucially, how far it is to walk from any particular destination. We evolved a kind of a language for mapping using the kit parts that were brought together, but also then using that form with marketing material as well. We produced a whole series of walk and ride maps. Again, millions have been produced. We produced little stickers on the back of some testing for ideas where quite easily people can mark out where they are and where they need to get to as a simple idea. People in tourism information offices, having a conversation with the customer, it's means of getting a dialogue going about the city itself. That's the reverse. So again, you're always greeted within the system with more opportunities than just the walk option or just the ride option. It links into the metro as well as the electric bus service. We then went on to look at the whole idea of how you create a personal piece of parts for tourism bodies, the education establishments, and that too. That we could give them free maps to use and free design services almost for the city. To be used in their tourism publications. We went on to design suites of maps and publications to fit into corporate brochures, conferences, tourism documents. So it's basically creating this little design resource, kit of parts that everyone can use. And that's now been rolled out. We went on to do things like guides for the city, heritage trails. It's still rolling out as a project, trails, all other stuff. Can we see one more? And there's something else. Last one. And then I'm going to shut it up. Okay, Southampton. I've got a book on this, so if anybody wants to stick a book, I will do it at a certain point in time. But the idea behind this was, again, what's funny about this one, it's not really funny at all actually, but it came as a project out of Bristol. Bristol attracted money to tell other people about the projects they were doing, which is great. And they engaged us to mentor Kaiserslautern, Hagen, a whole host of German cities, Bruges and Belgium, start to think about more user-centric design for cities. One of those cities that they also partnered with was Southampton. So that process has been, and this kind of design process, it has been catalytic, not just in one city, but in multiple cities. And Southampton were lucky enough off the back of Bristol to bid for a few £100,000 of UK money, 300,000 euros maybe, to start and develop a project, to which now it's attracting many millions of pounds into this project by virtue of building the energy up and developing it at what I would think is the right way. Southampton again has got problems. What city doesn't in many ways, but this has probably more than most. In terms of it's not even that beautiful. The raw material that you have to work with is it's a dockside city. There is no public access to its waterfront at all. Not problems similar to Bristol in many ways. It has beautiful parks, but none of the parks are faced by buildings. So there's danger in those parks, and there's really structurally, the city is a mess. You were talking earlier about, what can you do with cities that you'll have major structural problems. Well, that's 10, 20, 50-year vision to rebuild and reconnect those cities properly. But Southampton wanted to do something, at least get people to explore and get them into hidden parts of the city. So when a tourist or a visitor's coming here or somebody on business, they actually know where to go and get a cup of coffee or go to a bar or to a restaurant, because it's in no way obvious when you visit that city what there is to do there. It is a very eligible city. However, it had a crazy vision. Not like, maybe I'm not serious, right? You could literally copy that vision and you could possibly copy it into 20 other cities in the UK at the moment. Maybe change one or two words, but they all be pretty similar. And they actually mean very little. You know, and say, hey, we want to be really good. But how? You know, I think here they saw something in particular from Bristol that they could identify with. But there are cases, yes, that actually what we don't want is necessarily just a transposition or a copy of those ideas. We want something that comes out of our own city in as much as what it feels like, will it ultimately feel like it's of Southampton, which is a bit of a challenge. So this gives you an idea of some of the mess, some of the confusion, some of the difficulties that the user is faced with when you arrive in Southampton. And this is a city that's not untypical to many, I should add, in the UK. But nobody had really taken an overview on this. And actually looked at the way and actually started to think back, well, what could you improve and what do you need to improve in order to make it more engaging and user experience. We did a lot of urban analysis, looking at destination spaces, secrets of movement in the city. So in common with all our work is a good degree of planning behind it. And again, defining a spatial structure and a movement network for the city. Again, something that we felt very passionate about, that they had to evolve and develop in order to push and pull people through different parts of the city in the future, and try and extend the stay and spread the spend and the economic benefits of any project that we're involved in. We did a lot of analysis around the table, often talking about the city, going through plans, documents, trying to understand and almost tap people with their knowledge in order for us to add value back into their own process. I mean, I've done a view on like that people employ designers and consultants, either tell them what they already know, they just want validation, or to give them something entirely different beyond their current imagination. And I'd like to think that we don't get involved in validation that much, that we question and do analyse as much as possible in order to create a sense of the future that is something more powerful, or something that's more robust, and something that is special to that place. So that's a real challenge. A lot of people do want just validation, or they want to take a think of what the last what copy of what the last place did. A lot of work we got involved in is quite boring, structuring information. So we got hands-on at the time, working on everything from the spirit of the place to its image to issues of perception. There's a whole kind of brand evaluation exercise that's often parallels. And these are, again, some images from our own studio sessions, sitting with, working with a client in different sectors of the community. And again, we opened up our doors at that point in time to literally only 50, 60 people were coming through over a 2 or 3 day period to hear what was happening and what was being developed. And what we suggested was actually, unlike many cities which you want to do just enough and no more, i.e. don't over-design, kind of in Southampton, it's such a poor environment with very little kind of really to pull it together. We actually felt we could design with perhaps more personality and more gusto, more being perhaps a bit more showy, dare I say, turning up the volume, the noise, because there's actually very little there that really anchors the kind of visual image of the city together. There's an expression that Marc uses, French anthropologist, called non-place. And it's almost like an environment which feels like any other. It doesn't really have a rootiness or personality. Classic non-place environments are things like motorway service stations or airports. Often they put a nice roof over the top, but broadly they're pretty interchangeable. Wherever you are in the world, things are broadly similar. In a way, Southampton could be one of those cities or one of those places. You know, perhaps I'm being unkind. I can say these things because maybe here is from Southampton at the moment. No, I didn't exactly unkind on that. So Southampton, it's almost in need of something that will give it a more sense of itself, a sense of purpose, you know, because it's not there architecturally, it's not there in other facets of public design, which is a shame. We also want to create a system or a language for the city that could, and this is one of the classes for the city, it's open space, it's art, it's almost like the Olympic city in many ways, because it's no your city for activities for health and kind of social activity. And what we suggest is unlike, for instance, in Sheffield, where the emphasis was clearly on creating something that would work as a transport system for people. Here we said we wanted to create something that could evolve as a visual language to aid people's well-being, to create more healthy lifestyles in particular, encourage their education and kind of designing publications, to encourage people to be more active and to change their travel behaviour and their lifestyle behaviour. It's a very different kind of emphasis to it. But again, being quite mercenary, that's the way the government are doing the health agenda in the UK as well. So what are the design tools to service that political ambition? We thought we'd try to evolve some locally that kind of reflect that. So it is almost like an active travel program, what we call active travel or smarter travel in the UK, where you're encouraging people to walk, run, skate, cycle, whatever. But we did have this idea again of stitching on pre-journey, arrival, getting around, interchanging and finding things at your destination. And so we did want this idea of creating a thread through those moving stages that link things together. So we came up with both an information concept and a product concept. And the information concept was to say, unlike Bristol, where you provide a fairly uniform information system across the whole central area, because Southampton is this mixture of fairly nice places with pretty crap places, what we wanted to do was just promote the hotspots initiative, okay? And promote areas of what we would define new hotspots to get people to and from, but directing them in as clear a way as possible to those particular environments. Hence the notion of marking routes and providing hubs at particular points. We also said it's a city that needs to evolve a graphic language. Now, Southampton is the biggest port in the UK. It was home of the Titanic, Queen Elizabeth, all the major ships that came out of the UK. And at one time we had a language that was quite international, a language going from connecting Southampton to the rest of the world. It was the international gateway to the country. In many senses, it had a confidence, it was bold at one point in its history, going back 80 years. So what we wanted to do is try and reclaim some of those feelings and some of those values, like design values, in evolving the new design language. So we look very much at the materiality of the city, its colours, its stone, its water, in order to say, well, how do we create, again, a visual language that mirrors contextually the way that city looks and feels. And we came up with a sort of multiple colour palette in a way that is almost the background colours of the city, basically based on its sea greens. But then working through a colour hierarchy for, we had kind of the base and dark colours for background information. A whole range of other colours within an agreed colour spectrum that can be used to highlight some features and for different aspects of communication. So for heritage, for shopping, for different functions in the city, it's highlighted through colour language. So kind of those own little colour spectrums relate to wayfinding, but also a language for streets and spaces, for marketing, print and web. Pretty deterministic, pretty top-down, you might say, but actually the city needs it. And, you know, I'm not apologising for that this year, really, but we also did a lot of assessment about how colours, headline colours, then work in combination to communicate different transport services or different features within the city. So before we decided anything, we did a lot of trying to understand the function of colour and its meaning to the user whenever and wherever they're using information. We're also quite literary, and I don't know what else this either. Again, we didn't take our cues in terms of visual language from the current city almost, but from the visual language, an international language of container shipment, and a very powerful language in terms of use of colour, materiality, use of lines, you name it, textures. And that PA on the right there forms part of the new typeface that we brought on board Dalton Mark from the UK, Bruno Marking, Swiss, to work with us. I won't dwell on this, but what was interesting, this in my view was the first time from our point of view where we tried to stitch the typography to pictograms, the whole graphic language was evolving. And we had a council here that needs to keep open schools, needs to keep open healthcare services and all these other things, just telling us why we need to spend money on this type of design for a city. And we had this debate now 2 or 3 times in different cities in the UK, producing you wouldn't believe the presentations we had to do just to convince people to evolve typography as a facet of design. But it's interesting now we're talking to 2 or 3 other cities, and how much do you want for typography? They don't ask now because they're seeing the value themselves in terms of the role of typography in the city. But I think this is a very interesting exercise to work in because we're working with somebody like Dalton Mark who actually had never read a city before, had never really engaged in a city. And it was actually quite a painful exercise to start with, to get them to work intuitively based on place and the spirit of place, and actually trying to capture that and distill that, as opposed to producing something that is universally applicable and works purely from an ergonomic point. It's that balance of personality meets functionality. And so I think it's quite challenging for them in many ways, but hopefully it came really in the end. What we worked on was very much a series of different ways and forms, from a display, loud, very graphic display ways to typefaces that work very much from a legibility point of view and reading information, body text and the like really. And what was interesting in terms of all the design elements that we went through, we involved University of Reading and the Royal National Institute for Blind and other parties in how the whole system was designed. And that shows you the way the pictogram language also featured as part of the system, which again we use at scale in the city as a playful device for wrapping structures and cross buildings and various things as well. But very functional, but also something of the city is now invested in their design. And I was talking about the green credentials and the health credentials of this project. Again, taking it further, and this is from I'll show you a bit more about this, but evolving the language across a whole host of different functions and devices, from kids playing on playgrounds, fishing, to skateboarding, to the whole lot really. We evolved the whole graphic language to define personality within the city. We also, there was a graphic language in terms of its shape and form. Again, the idea of the group being quite important to all of this, as probably most of you understand as designers, But again, something that we wanted to do is create a series of devices that could act as information containers. So the container would change shape and reflect again the forms of information to be provided in part. At the top left there you see very figurative forms, which are simple direction-giving devices, through to text tags that on the slide above. I'll go back one. Which again you can see use the aspects of the design to then give it some personality. Illustrative material, again use graphic rendering, again different line weights illustrations being used. And if you look at the next image, you'll see this one, you see the overlay into mapping systems. The city of textures get ever richer, more detailed mapping and defining again. And we also use this idea of hotspotting in various different parts of the city to communicate what's on offer and what you can see in different areas. Simple mental maps. Again, having more texture in things like spaces, so elements of cartography almost becoming 3D in their language and feel. These are hugely successful projects for them and enable them to attract further government funding because of what they're doing and what they're promoting in terms of healthier lifestyles. This is a major open space in the city, and again, this was done to get parents to take their children to the space and to use the space in a way that perhaps wasn't before. So we gave them options on running trails, calories you could burn when you're doing various activities. Links, calendars, events. Come back now. I was just going to say, on the product design, we ground a lot of product design for the project in understanding reading highest distances ergonomically. And again, there's been a lot of research into this, because it doesn't exist, and then it sounds crazy. But there is no guidance for designing maps or for reading distances in an outdoor environment. In the UK, we have things like clear print standards and guidance on large print and other kind of publications for those that visually find it difficult to read material. But nothing in the outside environment. So again, we were trying to establish benchmark standards for this. The language then for product follows through is having very functional, distinctive, bold terms and creating something that's quite playful but quite bold and graphic. In its figurative form, deliberately, using mock-ups of different ideas for each name going into streets and spaces. And the idea that you can also create another little narrative around against health and well-being in terms of burning 21 calories or what the CO2 emission of your journey is, for instance, which is added in this very simple device. And we worked on product design, simple products really. Mock-ups also for the transport system. And then the first stages have started to go into the city now, working really well. So much so that they agreed last week to fund the rest of the development of the city, which is, for us, good news. We might not get all the work to do, but nevertheless, what it means is the project will go on growing, which is nice to see. I think some of the quality in terms of the visual language and the mapping is probably better than anything that I've been involved in before in many ways. It's been a very exciting project to be involved in, all of them have. But I think what I like about this is also the potential again to link public space improvements to old arts and environment. So again, we're not designing or deliberately evolving a design language for everything. There are artists working on street furniture design and other elements which are again, a deliberate foil, they're incidents in the street and they're one-off objects as part of, supposed to be part of a design system. And I think that's about it. It's rubbish. It's not rubbish, actually. It's boring planners now. The other thing, last thing I want to say about this is that, again, in building the future legacy, the last thing about this is that we are creating almost a plan chest, the visual parts that the city will ultimately own and evolve themselves. And I think we've learned that from all the projects we've been involved in, that the testament to their success isn't the designer, actually it's, in many senses, it's the quality. At least the quality we aspire to. But ultimately, does it work? Can it be maintained? Can it be managed? In other words, can it live beyond Rawlinson's argument? And that's another part of the shot, really. A few thoughts, read at your leisure, but if you've got any questions, obviously I'm happy to take them. I know I've been rambling on for a long time, and I do appreciate your interest, or at least your active interest in this. But if you want to ask questions in a group or individually, I'm very happy to try and answer any series of questions that you have.
Mike, how did you decide to dedicate yourself to people products? How did you decide to open the studio which works because it's not very fun in general. It's not very fun, it's very creative. It's not technical.
Oh, yeah. But I kind of think, just because we have to think about the way we design, to my mind, there is something there, okay, it's a bit anal maybe or whatever, but broadly, if, I think, this kind of work is probably some of the hardest design work to do in certain regards, because there are so many facets to it, there are so many interests, there are so many considerations that you have to bear in mind as different views and needs, demands in the public, also very complex clients to work within. I mean, I find all that complexity really quite interesting in some kind of way, and I kind of like the idea if there is a trophy in all this, kind of thing that works, is the fact that things can work as a system. So that's bigger than any one little thing. It collects and makes more difference than certainly a piece of architecture in the city or whatever. And I kind of like that. I know it's weird, perhaps, but I like the idea of thinking about everyday things and how you can create something more than their individual parts. And I think, that approach has its merits in places. So, yeah, maybe not glamorous, but it's so important that other people pick up on what we're doing and actually champion the role of public design. It's really, really key to all our future.
Hello. My question is talking about cities. I was just wondering something about at least it didn't come up in this presentation. So talking about cities, I was just wondering, have you ever had the chance to deal with graffiti problems related? I don't know if you to solve somehow some graffiti movement related to the city.
3D?
No, graffiti.
Oh, graffiti?
Yeah.
I like graffiti.
Yeah, no, of course, if you consider this a problem.
Yeah, so fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from my town, so there's graffiti everywhere. I mean, I could show you, I could have shown a lot more images about this place, and particularly Bristol. And, I kind of think the street culture, the whole levels of counter-culture and different voices are actually probably way more important than some of the things I've been talking about. And certainly personally to a lot of people in Bristol, yet, you know, it's having that balance of design that's structured, design that's mannered, and does its job, and actually then thinking, well, how do you actually create a level of creativity and other voices that can exist in tandem and collaborate to that. I think it's quite a mature attitude that kind of Bristol has to it. It's kind of streetscape in as much as, you know, it doesn't clamp down on, it doesn't have a control freak attitude to the way the environment's managed, and it's certainly not the manicure. So, you know, I think those that haven't been there, in some ways it's a bit more like Berlin in certain parts of the city. You know, it has an energy, it has a youth, it has vitality to it, and it has creativity that's expressed in lots of different art forms. You know, and you know, one or two of the projects that we did get involved in were, again, about not necessarily working with graffiti artists, but other kind of storytellers in the way they would use spaces, for instance, roundabouts and parts of the road network. And, you know, kind of, so I kind of see the sort of kind of the language, visual language, has been a concept-based approach where it is that kind of from subliminal to overt, and you know, you get a rich mix if you open up the spectrums and scope the story to everybody from a poet to an information designer. You know, they all have a role. I don't know if that answers the question, but.
How much do you or can you take care of, for example, handicap lines or comes here?
Sorry,
Or how much can you or do you take care of handicap, like blinds or count here with information or guiding lines?
Good question. Maybe I haven't dwelt on this sufficiently, but you know, clearly mobility impaired, and by that I mean that everybody that is less able across any of our kind of faculties from sight to hearing in particular. What we've tried to do in terms of the visual language, because what I've shown is a very visual, you know, very, very visual products basically, is we've tried to set a benchmark in terms of their usability for those that do have levels of vision impairment. So things like, you know, typelists are tested, everything is usually tested with access groups and mobility groups. We open up our process to the RNIB, the Royal Institute of British Blind, the RNIB, which is the equivalent for the deaf. So what we're trying to do is build a knowledge base around the design for mobility impaired in order to provide, you know, quality products. So, you know, point sizes, contrast at that level for visual language. We're also running a few projects now, one with the University of Edinburgh, and we're also involved in Birmingham with their Digital City project on, you know, things like ideas for mobile communications and wayfinding, which basically are voice activated or voice received. So it's basically audible wayfinding as devices. We also work quite early on with people like, again, the RNIB in terms of audible signs. Effectively, in Bristol, you can pick up a radio receiver, a transponder, and you can carry it around, and if you're in proximity with any of the units, it can be on buildings, lampposts, as well as in signs. It gives you voice-activated messages to aid your wayfinding. You know, we're doing what we can on the projects that we're working on, and you know, those issues are ones that, you know, do require more research and more investment, to be honest with you. I mean, we're working on a project in London, and I think, you know, again, there's mobile-based services that you can now call for information, but broadly, you know, projects in cities like London should be setting a worldwide standard for ease of reading, intuitiveness of design. And I don't know at the moment whether the clients at the moment are really considering those needs fully. And certainly many designers don't, sadly.
I would like to ask you about two cities quickly. One is the obvious one, it's Milan. I don't know how familiar you are with Milan, so I'm not going to ask you for kind of the cure like that. But thinking about Milan, especially now with the Expo coming in 6 years, and you can see that they're starting to do things, but to the general public it might look rather random that there are some city guides and they're doing, of course, the Expo side. And there's a huge discussion going on about the metro line, refurbishing, etc. What's the timeline in these things? Do you think Milan is already far too late?
No. No, I mean, the good thing about working for events is there's an immediacy. And what happens, from my experience, is that you put an event 4 or 5 years away, and that will galvanise politicians, it will galvanise people in charge of commissioning design, because they know they have to improve the way they communicate their different audiences. So 5 or 6 years is good. Any longer it becomes a problem. It's not on the radar. People can leave it too late. I mean, I'm worried about the Olympics in London. We're only just having conversations on certain aspects of projects, and that level of timing is fine, but people need to start having the right kind of conversation with one another. I think what's remarkable, when we had a little bit of this conversation, what's remarkable about Milan, it's a privilege to be here. It's a great city in many ways, everything, but most of the design that takes place or happens in the city is a kind of private consumption of beautiful objects and beautiful things. You do beauty very well, but the actual kind of everyday experience of being in Milan, in terms of wandering in streets and spaces, or even just trying to find the way around and see what the city has to offer, is actually quite difficult for a visitor. So there is a gap there is something that needs to be done. It's, I sort of a model factory upstairs with your beautiful cars. Well, where's the Milan bus? Where's the Milan tram? All those things that you should, I'd say, well, this is the place where, there should be an outpouring of public design. And it should be the most, it could still be as beautiful as the finest car, finest Ferrari, or whatever. It's given an impetus, it's given some political energy and direction to say, well, look, public design is the equal of any form of design space.
And the other city is maybe the worst place, or one of the worst places to be, it would be Detroit. How would you approach a place like Detroit right now? Do you get involved really also in the urban planning when you work with cities? Or would you need to have some kind of input and solution of the city council where they want to arrive? How would you approach that?
I think I've never been to Detroit, number one. But Detroit, in common with Gary, St. Paul's, because I host the cities there, they're kind of the Motown cities that fundamentally, what's the right way of putting it, but they're screwed, they are screwed. I mean, they've got all the problems that certain European cities had 10 or 15 years ago, which is big German cities, East German cities. And dare I say it, cities like Sheffield, which are pretty reliant on a monocultural existence, generally automotive industries and services, or hundreds of them servicing that monoculture. But that city needs effectively an economic rebound. And that's a totally different, a totally different ecosystem from some of the projects I've been talking about today, where there has to be ultimately a vision-making process for that city where it really turns its direction, and actually where it syncs angrily with negotiations through government, not necessarily just to underpin the manufacturing base, which is basically just repurposing the current problems, but to actually think in an entirely different direction. and it needs a radical rethink from vision, structurally to every aspect probably of its existence, because it's going out of existence. Horrendous problems really. But every city needs a story, and there's clearly potential where there has been energy and there has been that level of economic worth in the past, that some of that spirit, some of that energy could be remade for today. But it's an economic and structural issue, not an information issue for sure. It's sticky bumps though, it's we have the expression lipstick on the gorilla, there are more fundamental structural problems that at any level of sort of design embellishment or kind of it's just not going to work.
Allora, io il mio inglese è miserabile, quindi non farò una domanda in italiano, però sono veramente molto interessato a un'idea che è emersa molto esplicitamente da tutta questa manifestazione di tematiche diverse. Allora, una città è sicuramente qualcosa di molto complesso, molto articolato, composto di infinità di ingredienti. Per cui mi sembra che venga fuori con grande forza questa idea della direction, cioè della regia, no? Diventa assolutamente fondamentale questa di competenza che noi designer fino a un po' di tempo fa non consideravamo abbastanza importante, diventa fondamentale. La mia domanda diventa a questo punto, ma cosa deve sapere, come deve agire un director per essere un buon director?
To translate this question, but his question is, in such a complex situation as a city is, with many different buildings and things that have to be coordinated and so on, give a direction to design is very important. So how do you come to the direction of such a complex situation? What do you need to do?
Gosh, that's a complex question. This one wasn't somewhat. How do you become a good design director of cities? Is that what I have to direct the design?
What do you need to be able to give a good direction?
Alright. Where do you start? Listening, empathy. There's a myriad of so many different skills are required, and generally they're not. What I'm kind of saying is they're not generally found in one person. And actually, what you need, in my experience, is organising ideas. And it's not a visual idea necessarily, but it's an idea that you can organise minds around. And if they can gravitate to an idea, they can start to gravitate to a working process. And if people of the right mind, as well as empathy, understanding, they have passion, they have an understanding of mechanics and needs for change, but they understand how to evolve vision and to move that forward. Then you can have 4, 5, 6 people at different levels that can start to exchange ideas on that basis, then you have potential. Happens if they're politically way up there, happens if the big pockets with lots of funding helps too, but it's a combination of the understanding and passion, but an eye to how you move that organising idea and how ultimately you can get expression forward to that by empowering designers and empowering people that come into view of the idea of the system. You know, so it's a challenge. It's a difficult question to answer.
Sì, no, benissimo e grazie.
Anch'io dovrei fare la domanda in italiano perché inglese non tornerei a Italia, a Milano, magari un po' è una domanda un po' allargata. Credo che come a parlare prima, un po' Italia, Milano rimane un po' lontano. Gran professionalità per quanto riguarda i professionisti che si occupano della comunicazione, ma mi domando dove sta il problema per cui quando ci si gira, si guarda intorno, c'è questo gap. Lei anche ha visto mi chiedevo un po' la domanda che ti pongo, è come nella vostra esperienza avete vissuto con altre realtà in altri paesi e questo andamento con le diverse amministrazioni pubbliche sappiamo che sono legate anche a elezioni, la complessità non solo nella risoluzione quello che riguarda tutto l'anno, ma invece sarà anche la risoluzione se convincenti che un po' mi permetto di affermare che deve essere un buon convincente, capace di lavorare insieme a voi per raggiungere l'obiettivo, essere bravo veramente quanto professionisti e contatti.
Only caught part of that. I think you answered your own question. Yeah, clients have to be as good today as the designers themselves. You know, I think good designers will put themselves in their client's shoes. Yeah, they'll walk that same path as the clients. But I missed the first bit of the question. So,
perché vedendo i progetti presentati mi interessava capire un po' le problematiche affrontate anche a livello organizzativo, ma da committenza, no? Siccome sono progetti che si sviluppano tanti anni, quando nel momento non sono così felici il progetto cosa
Another hard question. I mean, I sometimes don't know if politicians in particular see the real world problems, and I certainly don't think many politicians see design as being fundamental to resolving issues. So, how can we and how can institutions like and the skills and services that you have in abundance here. So when was the last project this school engaged with the Mayor of Milan? Maybe it says it all. You know, there's got to be a way of, I think, you know, when we've been successful, we've taken, even doubt, if people have doubts, we've designed the process in a way that makes their involvement quite key, becomes an education process in its own right. You know, I can only say by working in certain ways, through open studio techniques and other ways, that you increase the chance of the project growing by involving key people in the infancy, or in the genesis, the infancy, and every stage of the project thereafter. You know, we have to work really hard at the psychology, at that kind of whole, you know, kind of, it's getting under the skin of people, you know, and finding a way of them taking the same journey I've taken before and other people have taken before. You know, and like I say, for this school, you know, you could be having multiple journeys with different stakeholders and interest groups, not just nice car makers. You know, lots of spheres of public design and designing in areas. You know, and with the expo coming up, we've got a great opportunity. You know? But it will only happen if people get the idea that there's an issue and a problem. There needs to be some way of organising, and finding a way of channeling energy and creating an idea, a visual idea thereafter. You know, design down there. You know, it's really engaging in issues and problems, finding a common, you know, creating a common language and having a common understanding that's required. You know, I think it could be a challenge. You know, 6 months' time, like the Mayor of Milan team here. You know, and see a project about you and other people, about how you engage, how you talk to, how you distill Milan in a way that will benefit not just the expo, but thereafter. You know? Great.
Io in italiano. La mia domanda riguarda il progetto di Bristol London. Rispetto a quello che ci ha mostrato oggi, credo che una differenza di scala, soprattutto quindi non collegherei alla domanda che ha fatto il professore Cesi, no? Quindi questo grado di complessità è proprio del design dei progetti, della complessità globale. E la mia domanda quindi era in particolare il ruolo che SPD nel progetto di Legibile London e la relazione tra Legibile London e il London Traffic. Find the last one? Un pochino più specifica diciamo, che significato può avere un progetto come quello di Legibile London in una complessità come quella di Londra, in particolare penso al wayfinding di superficie. Quindi in una realtà che ha un'identità diciamo, di quartiere molto diverse. Rispetto all'uniformità del wayfinding diciamo, del common transport.
London, I could do a whole lot of lecture on London in a way. I've been involved in Legibile London as a project for several years. Patricia Brown, she's from Central London Partnership. She's one of those clients that you kind of dream of. You know, know, she comes back to your question. She sees ideas and will find a way of going for any door to get the idea sewn in, or sit at any table, or meet anyone, or, you know, she's an amazing networker, and she took and built that idea up in London, and it took years and years before Transport for London became involved in, interested even in Metro London. In terms of design, we had not that much involvement up until very recently. We're one of 3 design teams, AIG London, actually some city ideas. And to be honest with you, it's the most boring project I'm working on at one level because it's a science system. And, you know, yeah, we work on design science, but I think the potential of that project is not stillborn, but hey, it's compromising because of the scale of London. You know, it's a vast project, it's a vast city. Trying to get anybody to agree to anything in London, which is, you know, the fiefdoms, I don't know if that translates very well, but basically you've got neighbourhoods and villages that are broadly in competition, broadly don't see themselves as even being part of the same city. And you have a project that is trying to, in some senses, impose a standardised way of delivering information. And I think that's become easier because, again, money, people with deep pockets are Transport for London. And they are pumping money into the project in order to make sure it rolls out. But again, I can provide contacts and people if you want to talk to them beyond myself. But it's broadly a science project. You know, it's a science project, no more than that. You know. But it's a very big one, simply because it's one of the big cities in Europe, obviously. I don't know. I could talk for a long while on London, but you know, kind of, I think, you know, really it's probably worthwhile getting somebody in from Transport for London, if you're speaking to somebody at Transport for London about that project, really. And if it's good answer, probably not that one, really. Yeah, it's a frustrating project. It's in Canberra, isn't it? It's a very yeah, I kind of like, not my honest view, I like projects that move things on, and some people say it can move things forward, but I kind of think it's a project that's borrowed quite a lot of its personality from other places. It looks incredibly like Bristol, though I don't think it's as good as Bristol, but it's had some of the designers that worked on little bits of Bristol working on it, you know, and I kind of think for London, it could and should be better than it is. I'm really being unspoken about that now, but I think it's disappointing. I also think it's rather disappointing in some senses that the connection between science systems and you know, public space and public life really hasn't been followed through properly there that well. You know, Transport for London's so big, and London's so big, people think in silos, you know? It's compartmentalised thinking. And it's very difficult to join up ideas, you know, to create other conversations there about what I think the greater potential and whatever. It might change, but at the moment I think for me it's you know, it's not the most innovative of projects, unfortunately. Okay, I'm exacting, right?
Hello. When you spoke about, perhaps you covered this also in the beginning, but you talked about branding the city and giving an identity to the city itself, and telling this identity through a story. But do you sometimes find a conflict between that and the actual local identities that you sometimes find in the city quarters, and how perhaps it could be interesting to go down that level to show local identity cultures where sometimes it was. But have you encountered, for example, some, I don't know, conflict between the people who live there and the actual image that is being placed on the city, perhaps?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, even in Bristol, once people have an idea, they can run away with it. You know, and they think a politician thinks, all right, that's good, let's do it again, and again. And we got involved in a project in Europe, it's funded through Europe, and it was about extending information to neighbours. And sadly, politicians thought about science. They did the potato printing, like copying what had been done in the central city and said, let's push it out, let's take it out. And we had battle after battle about the relevance and whether it was best value in terms of money and usefulness primarily to people. And you know, kind of, it was a classic case because they got the money, because it was seen as an area of innovation, providing information to neighbours now they could integrate it, they had to spend it. But they wouldn't spend it on developing yet more ideas because they thought, oh God, that's too much to think about and we'll have to maintain it all. So they literally wanted to put in what they've done already. And it's, to my mind, it's failed. You know, it hasn't worked. And it hasn't worked because there was no idea behind it. There was no relevance behind it. And actually people weren't really talking to the audience and the customer themselves, which is residents, schools, whole host of things. We suggested dozens of ideas to them that they could look at education programs in schools to understand, you know, undertake mental mapping exercises and educational program to raise awareness of the environment using mapping tools. You know. Information to transport related to corridors in the city, which would be really useful. Sorry, no. You know, what we ended up with, I think, or what they ended up with was something that was imposed and not very relevant. So, you know, there's a danger in that if people go too far, they'll just see a simple solution and forget how it was made and why it was made, and that's the case in point. I think they agree with that. They won't do the same case. It cost them several €100,000 to find out. Silence. Good. Yeah.